I be in this world?
No one had ever asked me such a question.
When I was a child, I learned nothing is freer than a bird. But when I grew up, I learned not all birds are free. Some of us are caged. And in those cages, we can never reach our potential. This is no way to live.
I was born poised to sing a song for no one. What can I call back for myself?
So many brave others have gone before me.
Life, it can be hard and you can feel alone.
What if it's up to me now to use the power of my words to speak out?
But now I know this is true. Simple yet strong. There's a song in my heart, a song in my soul, a song that I'm tethered to.
A girl on her period can't go to school. It's unheard of.
तैँले यस्तो कुराहरू बानी सानी गर्न लाग्यो भने त अनि कहाँबाट हामी अगाडि बढ्छौँ
मतलब बहुत मैं जो गुस्सा करती थी कभी लड़के पीछे करते करते स्कूल तक पहुंच जाते थे और जो भी कुछ है उसको मतलब हिम्मत से करना चाहिए वो When my teacher asks us, what do I want to be? I do not even know how to answer. I want to be a singer. I want to sing.
This drought has ruined our lives.
Maybe I can grow my own garden.
Hello everyone and welcome to my channel.
She's supporting her whole family.
tất cả mình có thể được làm chủ cũng giống như bao người
We are girls, and together, we are fearless.
It's time now for the bird to choose how she wants to fly.
I love that so much. It's so good. Every time I see it, and in what we talked about earlier in terms of what you want to evoke many times, awe and hope and parental love and all, I think that video does so many of those things that we want to do in our storytelling. But I want to introduce the women responsible for it. Martha Adams, who's an Emmy-winning producer, director, storytelling person that's driven by social impact, in particular around storytelling with women and girls. And you can see that in all of her work, whether it is She Creates Change, Girl Rising, or We Will Rise with Michelle Obama. And we've got a lot of fun things to talk about. And also sitting next to me is Jacqueline Bazzillo, who's the VP of Marketing and Comms at Room to Read, a organisation that's very close to my heart because I'm on the North American board. And I think with your 20 years of experience in both the corporate world and the non-profit world, you've done something amazing and really looked at how do we tell stories and maybe not the traditional NGO way and create impact storytelling around girls. So that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to ask a couple of questions. I want to leave time for questions from the room. So we're going to have 10 minutes at the end. So if you have any burning questions for these two amazing women, please start thinking about them. But first of all, why is storytelling around girls and women so important for you, Martha? It's obviously been your life's work.
Well, it's amazing to be here. Heather is a genius for bringing us all together. I can't believe Scott just spoke because I thought when Girl Rising came out, my life was over when the infrastructure started to fall apart and Scott came to the rescue. So I also place hummingbird feeders everywhere in my yard, so I started to choke up. So anyway, here we are today. The way I'm going to answer that is to tell you that last week I was on a flight in Florida, and I sat next to a man, and we started talking about the election. And he looked at me just very directly, and he said, you know, no offense, but a woman could never become the president of the United States. I was like, I'm right here. Like, what are you doing? So I thought about that. Hollywood has come a long way, but still 75% of leading roles are men. And for the vast majority of filmmaking, in narratives at least, women characters were done and written in support of men to make their character stronger or more interesting. And in children's books, only 33% of children's books are told with a female lead character. So I am just incensed by it. I'm a mom to Coco here, who's sitting in the second row.
Keeping good
right?
time. She's doing the Oscar music to wrap us up.
So we can't be serious about the SDG goals until we fold in half of society in a meaningful way. So, that's basically what propels me.
And it's interesting, I grew up in Ireland and I grew up with a president that was a woman. So when I moved to America, Mary Robinson, for those that don't know, and when I moved to America and I started talking about women and girls and this role at Glamour, that came up a lot. Oh, we haven't seen it, we can't see it, we can't imagine it, but there is such a power to seeing it even in the narrative form or the documentary form or around the world, for young girls to believe in what their possibility is.
That's right. And so you just saw the trailer to our campaign with Room to Read. The animation is a way for everybody, especially girls, to see themselves in the story. Animation suspends, we're not hung up on what city is that taking place in. So it's inclusive. The live action, the animation tells the triumphant moment of these 6 girls when they each achieve something once thought impossible for girls. But then we reveal the real girl, and she explains how she did it. And so in that moment, we go from inspiration to aspiration, meaning I see her, she's real, she can do it, I can do it too. And so that's why I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I think when we talk about representing women and girls, it's not enough to just fold them into the story, but we have to do it in a way that is truth, is real, it's practical, and it provides an accessible path for girls to follow.
Jacqueline, this, she creates change. It serves a lot of purposes for Room to Read, right? It's almost an anchor for fundraising. It is for girls' education. It's shared with the girls around the world. What do you see the different roles that this She Creates Change does for Room to Read?
So the origin stories of this project began in the pandemic when we knew we needed to reach girls on our girls' education program where they were, which was outside of the classrooms and at home. And our girls' education program is founded in mentorship and life skills education so that girls around the world can develop the knowledge and attitudes and abilities to fight challenges that they are facing through their education and really navigate key life decisions with skills like resilience and collaboration, critical thinking, decision making, and leadership. And so the beginnings of this film really started when we needed to reach those girls outside of the classroom. And it really started with one of our board members, the late Susan Wojcicki, who was former CEO of YouTube, and her vision that multimedia was a pathway for our life skills education programming to bridge outside of the classroom and into the homes of these girls. And to be honest, I don't think that we ever at that point realized what we were uncovering. It started very much as a programmatic exercise as a way to utilize multimedia content to bring life skills education to these girls. And then we brought together the most incredible team of women-led creators, Martha included, artists, animation directors, composers, writers, and the talent that we were able to amass just got us to this place where now we have a film that has gone through the film festival circuit in an award-winning capacity, that had a theatrical release just this month in New York City that was broadcast by Warner Brothers Discovery across 15 countries in Asia. And so the alchemy, I love that Heather used that word this morning, because that's the magic of this project. The alchemy of it is the programmatic distribution plan that we always had, which is to bring this film to girls on our programs and through partnerships around the world with wraparound life skills education curriculum, so worksheets that help them after watching a film really understand the particular life skill that it's utilizing and help them work through some activities to see that life skill in their own lives. But now we have something that's just in the mainstream, and we're allowing entertainment content to inspire action on behalf of girls everywhere. And as you said, there's a fundraising campaign behind it. So it's just quite magical what we've been able to do as a nonprofit that is a learning organization and really comfortable with experimenting in this way.
And when you talk about experimenting, I think one of the refreshing things about this when I watch what you have created is it's not like branded Room to Read. It's not, do you know what I mean? It's not this, it feels it can live separately. Tell us about that conversation, because if you're working with the world of NGOs and you're spending money on entertainment and multimedia, there is, I think, maybe this old school mentality of we need to brand everything with the corporate name, right? And why did you make the decision not to do that, and how have you found that, both internally and externally?
Yes, I mean, I think we could both answer that maybe in different ways, but I have to say I've been impressed and continue to be inspired by Room to Read's leadership and just our ability to listen to what would make this film direct to audience really compelling and help drive conversations around the issues that we know as a leading implementing organization we're solving for. And there was a little bit of healthy tension, I think, between the programmatic exercise that we had started off doing, which again was to bring this film through our programs to girls around the world, and the exercise that we just stumbled upon and then thoughtfully and intentionally walked down that path. And so for the film that was theatrical released and that will have a YouTube premiere on October 11th for International Day of the Girl, we really understood that overly branding it, would perhaps hinder the accessibility and the interest for general consumer audiences. And it's really just about driving conversation, deepening understanding about gender equality and girls' education, and then inspiring action in ways that are very much aligned with the conversation that we just had about helping people see that they can take a very specific action-oriented behavior in supporting Room to Read, in this case, to reach girls around the world through life skills education.
Martha, what was your take on that tension?
At the very beginning, the CEO of Room to Read, Gita Murali, she, we're trying to figure out if this is a good fit, and she shared her passion for animated films. Frozen, Happy Feet, and that's when I knew that she was a like-minded, spirited. It was done coming from the right place. So branding is, I cannot stress this enough, it is probably one of the single most important issues to carefully explore when sitting down at a table with your impact partner. Because the tendency, as we all know, it's crazy crowded out there, so everybody wants their stories branded. The problem is that as a consumer, as the audience, as soon as if it's too branded, you bounce out. You're out. It's like advertising, it's marketing. So you really have to strike that balance. On Girl Rising, we worked incredibly hard to make sure that all the materials that went out the door were not branded, but then we spent incredible resources to give our impact partners a war chest of specially branded materials. So that the branding piece is tricky. And Room to Read was absolutely incredible. Got it from the get-go. The other thing is that impact partners can want the story to be a bit too performative. if you have too many cooks at the table, they want it to be too literal, they want it spelled out. And that was like when you mentioned a little tension, sometimes I'd be on with the girls' education team and they were like, but it doesn't say, I'm like, but it will. Like, you have to like at some point, you have to suspend and just have faith that the music will take hold, that the colors will take hold, and that awe, that moment of awe, counts for something. But of course, when you're at the table, they're like, what are you talking about? How is that going to happen? So anyway, that's some of the constraints.
And do you have thoughts on at what time of the process storytellers come into with impact partners? Because I think we've seen a lot where they come in at the end. We've made this, we've filmed this, we've gone here. What can you do with it? And then you have others that bring storytellers in at the very beginning. What's your take on?
Well, like Blackfish, Scott mentioned Blackfish. There was no impact partner at the table. That impact campaign, actually, there wasn't even an impact campaign, but there was a profound impact. So just because you don't have your impact partner at the beginning doesn't mean you're not going to have amazing impact. In this case, I kid you not, I wrote the impact goal for this project on a yellow sticky, and I put it next to my laptop for 2.5 years. And that was just so that I never made the mistake. Like I didn't get too like mesmerized with, I knew all these opportunities were going to start to come out, but if you can get, I at least can get distracted by the shiny object in the corner. So the little sticky is like, okay, there's 300 million plus adolescents in the world today that are going to see this. And so we have to make sure that it works for them. And one thing we did was we involved...
Is that what it said on the Post-it note?
Yes.
Sticky? Okay, love.
Actually, it was 436 million, right?
432.
432.
Quite close.
Yeah, exactly. But we formed an advisory board of 40 teenage girls while making this, and they reviewed I treated them as my executive producers, so they reviewed absolutely everything. We involved the girls who the stories are about in the telling of their own story. They reviewed the animatics, they reviewed the storyboards. Their one father was upset because his belly was a little too big. His animated character was, it was, and then of course the artists who created the animation had a deep connection point. So I'm a little off topic now, but in terms of impact, it was an extraordinary team all along the way who kind of made sure that it was not
And I
in
would
vain.
just add, Room to Read obviously was at the table from the very beginning with this particular film. And when you think about direct-to-audience strategy, our audience always were those 432 million adolescent girls around the world. And so the girls on our program not only are authentically reflected in this film because of Room to Read's understanding of the particular challenges that they face, whether it's food insecurity or harassment or early marriage, but we were ensuring that we were creating a film that was going to resonate with every adolescent around the world so that they could see themselves in these stories, discover their own power, and choose a path that they are selecting for themselves rather than the ones that may have been forced upon them. So I do think having us, at the table, again, maybe not the path that every film takes when you do social impact storytelling, but for us was quite powerful in where we've ended up.
Was there any stories from those 32 million adolescents that watched the film? What were the stories that stood out to you in the reaction to it?
Martha did a lot of field testing with adolescent girls, as she said. For us at Room to Read, being able to show these films now through our programs in partnership with others and eventually being able to measure the change in life skills. So being able to effectively measure, is a girl watching a story about Dumini, a girl from Sri Lanka, and her decision-making abilities to bring her family out of food insecurity and stay in school, is that girl now able to effectively activate decision-making in her own life? That is the path that Room to Read is on with this particular project, and wanting to be sure that as we are implementing our life skills education program around the world, that we are really measuring change and perceptions and behaviors and attitudes and beliefs in girls and what they're capable of. That's exactly what we are trying to do, and we've created something that through our programmatic operations and wraparound life skills curriculum, we feel very confident that that will be the result.
I mean, we're all held accountable through measurement and evaluation. That's the name of the game. Is like, but the problem is like, how do you measure a change of your heart or your change of your soul? Somebody said to me a long time ago, "Do you love your kids?" I was like,
"Who asked you that question?"
It was a discussion on.
She's right here.
No, I said, "Of course I do," and they're like, "Prove it." I was like, "I can't," and that is, I've always held that when making meals, because we do have to measure impact. I mean, Bill Gates went into public health because it's easy to measure distribution of vaccines and the outcomes of vaccines. Low-income loans, again, you can measure how much was that loan, what had happened, how did it hold up that business. But how do you measure a change of heart and mind? So that traditionally is why or philanthropists and impact investors sometimes shy away from including story in their impact strategy. But thanks to people like Scott and others, I met a woman yesterday who's really trying to solve that riddle. And I think this just came out. So the impact, the measuring, the M&E on She Creates Change hasn't happened yet. But on Girl Rising, 6 months later, M&E was being conducted around the world. And one of the most interesting examples, I went to Rajasthan and saw how after 6 months, girls were being given protein. In the past, at dinner time, the protein went to the sons. And they were given time to do their homework. And in the past, it was just the girls had to do all the chores and never had time to do their homework. So the change in behavior can be not just like, oh, how did that film make you feel? But it's like, how is my household being, how is life changing? So anyway, I think we know that girls are reacting positively. The trailer received nearly 22 million views. So we know something's hitting. So the data is so far so good.
And you have another little clip to show us as well.
Oh yeah, we do.
Yes?
Come inside.
Huh?
Mrs. Samarakun has come to offer you a job as a domestic worker in the city.
What do you mean? That's so far away.
Huh? I've already accepted the offer.
This is my home. I don't want to leave.
Don't worry, we'll talk to her.
Dumini, I'm so sorry it has to be this way. This drought has ruined our lives. At least you can eat well there.
No, I want to stay here with you. I want to go to school.
There's just no other way.
You're as hungry as me, aren't you? What should I do? Huh? Huh? Wow. Huh? You survived. Maybe I can.
There's a cliffhanger for you. That means you all have to go watch it. I'm going to make sure we have time for questions because your daughter is doing a very good job of keeping us on time. But just really quickly before we go out to Q&A, I love the use of animation. I'm interested in knowing what kind of forms of storytelling do you think has been really untapped by the world of impact storytelling. I ask that selfishly because I'm obsessed with audio, and we have just done a big election project for Glamour, and one of the we had beautiful photography, amazing stories on abortion and the unwavering black women voters in South Carolina and care workers in New York. But my favourite part was Monique, who's in the audience, collected audio from women all over America, across the aisle, and we put it in this piece. And the storytelling, there was something about hearing accents from all over that just, when they were talking about gun legislation and abortion and their take on it, I just love the audio. I started in radio, so that's why I love it. Do you think there's a type of storytelling, whether it's TikTok reels or audio, that hasn't really been tapped into in impact storytelling?
There's so much to say, but for forever as storytellers, we've been separated in our silos. Like, oh, I make TV, I make podcasts, and the place that I'm obsessed with is when it all comes together. And the more we know that what's amazing about a feature film is that it's an immersive experience, right, or a novel, right? Versus a 10-second TikTok, for example. And magic really happens in that immersive environment. But I cannot wait for fashion to be more like connected to the actual story, for radio, for books. Right now, I think those barriers are starting to come tumbling down. And I think there's a world of opportunity. I mean, my kids have me on a 15-minute daily limit of TikTok.
That's you, 15 minutes? Oh, wow.
I'm so obsessed. I think I was the first person in the United States to sign up. But it's a problem. If you don't have it, do not put it on your phone.
Yeah. Jacqueline, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I'll quickly just tell the story of the song behind the film. Mm-hmm. So the song you heard in the trailer is called Who I Am. And that, again, was an unplanned wonder of this project, thanks to Martha. But we ended up producing an original song that is now on all streaming services, and it's called Who I Am because it is based on one of our girls' education life skills lessons, which is called Who Am I, where girls are asked, similar to Naifat, the young woman from Tanzania that you saw in the trailer, they are asked who they want to be in this world. And it's often the first time that girls are asked that question. And given the opportunity to imagine a future, outside of the one that their families or their communities might have chosen for them. And so the fact that we have a film that not only is beautiful in the trailer and in our work of art here, but that you can listen to it and it's an anthem for girls everywhere to really think about who they want to be in this world. When you talk about different versions of storytelling and different methods, I think music is one that we've been really fortunate to leverage. We just submitted it for a Grammy and the Best Song for Social Change Award. So if you know any voting members, let them know.
Let's get some time for a question or two from the audience before we move on. Does anybody have anything? This lady in the purple.
Oh, thank you. The focus on the 432 million.
We're always going to
remember it. Yeah.
Is really interesting and obvious. Sort of obvious. The obvious impact comes to that audience, but I wonder about boys too, and like the need for boys and men to see women as equals in order for this to really work. And so my question is, from an audience perspective, did you pick that audience of girls and just put your blinders up and say, on this project, we're going to focus on girls. Let's see how much change we can make there. And then maybe the next project, we broaden the lens a little bit, or is there a boy strategy around this too? Like, where do you see the utility in blinders, and where do you see the utility in some kind of halo effect?
That's a great question. So at Room to Read, we very much view boys and men as integral partners in gender equality. My colleague Abby is in the audience. If you want to ask her about our programming with boys, she can give you a lot of information. But we do have programs that address gender norms with boys in our girls' education program. We've piloted a program in Cambodia so that we can have a space where boys can talk about limiting gender norms for them as well. We very much work with fathers and uncles and leaders in local communities that are men so that girls are not only supported through the mentors that we provide at Room to Read, which are young women from their community, but in the home through their male family members, in their community, in local governments. And so while the audience for this film, may singularly be identified as every adolescent girl in the world, it is very much about changing, limiting gender norms. And we can only do that if viewers of all genders are consuming this content.
Thank you so much. I'm conscious that I've gone over time and I'm going to get into trouble, but I know there are questions in the room and I think you can ask them maybe on a break. Heather, thank you so much for creating this space for us to talk. It's just been a magical morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.